What's going on, Star Wars Destiny players? Kroozin here from the A Renewed Hope Star Wars Destiny Continuing Committee. I'm here with Eric Wainright, and we're going to talk today about some spoilers for the upcoming Faltering Allegiances set that's set to release on October 16th, which at the time of this recording is just over a week away. So coming in pretty hot. I don't know about you, Eric, but I'm pretty excited.
I'm very excited.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know Eric has many accolades throughout his Star Wars Destiny career, top cuts at Worlds, multiple regional wins, national top performances. Did you win a national? I feel like I should know this, but
I don't know. I did a lot of regional stuff, but only topped at Worlds once.
there you go. I only topped at World once. That's it. But most famous for, I think, I would say your BB-8 affiliation and your Blue Hero, your love for Blue Hero, right?
Yep, started with the Padawans and has continued out through Kylo Ren, but yes, Blue Heroes are my jam.
I love it. Yeah, no one has been more consistent on a deck that I know of in the whole game. So kudos to doing so, and you do so well in every meta with them, which is probably the most impressive part to me. But so with that in mind, we themed our spoilers for you around your affiliation for Blue Hero. So those of you who are watching on YouTube right now already get a little sneak peek. But in case you're just listening to audio, I'm just going to read through the card, tell you what it is, and then I'm just going to turn it over to you, Eric. Just tell me what you think. If you think it's any good, what your thoughts on the card in general, and we'll go from there. How's that sound?
Sounds great.
Awesome. All right, so the first card is Sifo Diaz, Professor Foreseer of War. So he's a 9 health blue hero, 9 for regular, 12 for elite. And his die sides are 1 melee, 2 melee, 1 focus, a shield, a resource, and a blank. He's a Jedi, and it says after you activate this character, you may reveal the top card of your deck. If it is blue, you may draw it. Otherwise, discard it. Yeah, what do you think?
So first, I want to thank the committee for sending me these Blue Hero cards. They know what I love, and I saw these cards, and I got really excited about them. So Sifo Diaz is ability to draw a card seems really great. We had that with original Luke back in Awakenings, and I think it's a strong ability. Maybe it was overcosted on Luke's a card back then, but here we've got more of a support character that can do that. There is a cost for getting a card every round, and that would be a completely mono blue deck, right? So you can't even run gray cards if you want to make sure you get that 6th card every round. But I think it's possible that if a blue deck exists that wants this point cost, that could totally slip in there. The dice isn't particularly impressive, so the resource side is good, the 2 melee side is good, the other 3 sides are just okay. So I don't know that you'd be running it with 2 dice unless you just have 3 extra points to play with. But I think there's possibilities out there where you have a 3-wide blue deck, and Sifo Diaz might be one of those 3 characters. So what does he have to work with there? So I think one of the things he has is he has the Jedi subtype on him. So if you wanted a 4-dice start, your options are an elite Ahsoka, elite R2D2, or elite lore, and then you've got another 10 points to play with, and you can put another 9-point blue character in there. I think Ahsoka is interesting since she triggers off of other people being Jedis, even if she doesn't get her knighthood out there. So I think that might be an interesting way to go. You have 2 low hit point characters, but you've got 3 of them, so you have to play around that. I think the other thing that might be interesting, and even though the meta might not be okay with it, is that one of the things for younglings is you need a Jedi, and now we have another cheap Jedi. And if there's something that younglings want, it's to be able to have cards so they can play their cheap weapons that redeploy. And now you have 6 cards so that you can or have a better chance of making sure you get weapons on your younglings every single turn. So I don't know how many younglings you'd want to try and put in there, but I think that's definitely a path worth exploring, as long as we don't have, the FC Anakin shenanigans that are just going to mow down younglings every turn.
Yeah. That's a cool thought. I like that. I hadn't thought about the younglings, but that's an interesting, and it points to, like you were talking about, the having to go mono blue to guarantee the draw. I think that's something we're going to talk about this a little later, just in terms of releasing the set in general. But there's like a little sub theme throughout where we're trying to encourage mono colored decks a little bit more than they have been in the past. I feel like throughout the history of Destiny, a lot of the best decks have always been rainbow good stuff. you know?
Right, because it's not that much of a cost to go rainbow, and so so you need other things that pull you towards monocolors. So I think this is definitely a step in that direction.
Yeah. Let's see. So I was gonna say, so if you had to, well, like, what's the first deck you think you'd want to try if you were building around Sifo?
I think I want 4 dice to start with. Just younglings and not having dice is just scary. So I mean, it might be able to be done, but I wouldn't know. So I would probably try Ahsoka with the 2 dice because her dice are excellent. And then with Sifo, and then the last person that I would plug in there, maybe Lore, maybe Kanan actually, because Kanan's pretty good with a single dice. So I'd have to play around with something like that to get that 3 wide and 4 dice start.
I like it. Yeah, I like the 3 wide path in general. I feel like I'm excited to see how he does in the meta, just because, I mean, I would never exclusively play Blue Hero, but like Qui-Gon Kanan back in the day was one of my favorite ever decks, and so I would like to see a little bit more of a resurgence of Blue Hero. I feel like it hasn't had its shining moment in a while, so we'll see. Cool. All right, you want to move on to the next one?
Let's do it.
All right, let's move on here. So, next card is a Blue Hero event called Form Drills. It is a 0-cost event, and it says choose 2 different set-aside move events, reveal them, and shuffle them into your deck.
Alrighty.
Yeah.
So I had to talk to you a little bit, and we went and dug up a little bit of rules. So set aside zone, you can bring, if a card in your deck references the set aside zone, you can bring as many things into that set aside zone as you want to. So what this basically means is you can start the game with all 8 of the move abilities that move events that are in the game in your set aside zone. So you basically have access to them as pseudo tutors. Now, it's not a tutor like in Magic where you get to pull whatever you want and put it in your hand. You just get to take it and shuffle it into your deck. So I guess step 1 of this is it is an anti-mill card, because you basically take 1 card and replace it with 2. So you have a little bit of tech there. I think the other interesting thing about this is if you look at the move cards in general, a lot of them are trigger or get better off of having a mastery on the characters. And so you don't always have the right mastery for the cards, like Neiman Mastery or Sheehan Mastery or whatever. But here, if you get an early Neiman Mastery down, you know that you can go out and pull the move events that have reference Neiman Mastery and put them in your deck to have a better chance to use them. So I don't know how much advantage that is, because they still could go to the bottom of the deck and it is costing you a card. But that is interesting to me that might be a way to do that. And then just in general, there's times like, Falling Avalanche is a card you never want to see early game. And so this is a way that if you do early game, you just go and put some Fluid or Pasta in your deck or something cheap that you might be able to use round 2. Whereas, when it gets to late game and you draw this card, you're like, yeah, Fluid or Pasta isn't going to do it anymore. We want the Falling Avalanche. We have all this money sitting around, and so we're going to pack our deck with some big finishing cards. So it gives you some versatility there. Now, what's interesting is if you combine this with our first guy, you have a way to potentially draw that card. You play this card, put them in your deck, put 2 of them in your deck, and then you can shuffle, and then you might draw off the top, and you might be able to get that card that you were looking for that might get you out of a sticky situation. So this combined with some card draw might also be able to do something.
Yeah, you mentioned the rule thing at the start, and I actually looked into it a little bit further after we spoke. I was talking to Gandork, and he brought up a good point that this mechanic already exists in some ways, like Chief Tripper's Hut, for example, references set aside the set aside cards there. So that's kind of like you're just expected to have brought those on the side of the game. But the interesting thing too, I think, with this card is it allows you to have essentially, I mean, assuming you draw the Form Drills, up to 4 copies of a move event in your deck if you want, because you can run the 2 in your deck and then shuffle another one. Now you need to play both Form Drills because it specifically says 2 different move events, so you can't just shuffle 2 of the same one, right? But still, you can do it to either get more of one type of move event. You can have flexibility in terms of the situation calls for I might need this. And like you said earlier, if you have ones you don't want to late game, maybe you don't even put them in your deck at all. You just play Form Drills, and then you can play it and shuffle it in and hope to draw it at a later time. So,
So the question is the card disadvantage going to be worthwhile for that, the ability to toolbox it, right? And so I would have to play with this a little bit to know, my first inkling is, I don't like card disadvantage. But, there are times when having the right card is better than having two cards, right? So
Yep. Yeah, because it's not only is a card disadvantage the turn you play it, but it's also you're not guaranteed to draw the cards you shovel in. So it has the potential to be 0 resources, do nothing. But
right.
but it's interesting.
But it's also a 0-cost card, so the opportunity cost at the end, you can use it for a reroll, and if you don't end up using it for a reroll at the end of the round, you can set it yourself up for next turn also. So,
Yep.
some of those 0-cost cards have value that way. You can't play too many of them, but you can probably sneak a couple in your deck.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, for sure. All right, you ready to move on to the fun one?
Let's do it.
All right, well, the fun one. They're all fun, but...
Yeah.
All right, the last part we're going to talk about today is a mastery card called Shicho Mastery. I really hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm pretty sure I am. It's a 3-cost upgrade ability form, and its die sides are 3 indirect, 3 indirect, 3 indirect, 2 discard, special. And it says blue character only. Limit 1 form per character. After you play this upgrade, you may spend 2 resources to discard a weapon from play. And then the special says turn a die showing damage to a side not showing damage. Then turn a die to a side showing melee damage. Lot to unpack there.
Yep, there's a lot here.
Yeah.
So I think so we've got a mastery here, which I assume there's going to be some training to go along with it. So there's probably going to be a way to cheat this guy out. But even the masteries that have seen play, they have to be good enough to play on their own. Like, cheating them out is probably not good enough. So let's look at this from that standpoint to start with. So the first one is that cool come into play ability is you can pay 2 resources and discard a weapon. So that means you really need to have 5 money if you want to be able to pull that off. And that seems hard to do in most decks, hard to do in a blue-only deck. So maybe there's some other deck that churns money, but it's probably going to be more of a rainbow type thing. But then you've got it blue character only, and that's always dangerous if you have that on a rainbow type thing. So I think that top ability is going to be like a gravy thing that doesn't happen a lot, or if it happens, it probably happens off of the training, right? If the training comes down, lets you play it, now you can spend those 2 resources to knock a weapon off. So I think that's, when it happens, it'll be great, but I don't think it's a reason to play the card. I think it's the bonus that comes there. So then, taking a look at the die sides, we've got 3 sets of indirect. And so this immediately makes me think, is this really a blue hero card? Because indirect damage is more of a villain thing, and heroes like their melee sides and like to focus on stuff. So I don't know that those sides really excite me in most hero decks. But in a second, we'll talk about the flip side of that, the villain side. But on the hero side, I'm not sure if that's particularly great. To discard is something that hero doesn't have a lot of access to. So if there is a deck that wants to go the mill plan and needs the 2 discard side, that's certainly something that they can use there. And just 2 discard in general is a strong side. And then the special is a super focus. So I found this very interesting because it seems like it's an Ayla ability where basically you're like, take one of their damage sides and blanket, and then take one of your dice and turn it to a damage side. Because a lot of times that's what you're doing, right? You're stopping their damage and increasing your damage. And so from that standpoint, it's just a good card. But it doesn't say opponent dice and your dice. So you have the ability to do other stuff with this. And so the first thing that popped into my head was some type of situation where you have your own damage dice, but you don't want to resolve them as damage. You'd like to spin them to something else. And the first thing that jumped out to my mind was being able to take a dice that has a lot of damage sides and turn it to its special. And so the 3 things that popped out to me were Deathfield, which has 4 damage sides that are indirect, but has an awesome special. Force Storm, which has 3 damage sides, but again, the special lets it roll back in, so that's pretty good. And then even the Sith Lord card, which has 3 damage sides, but lets you roll it back in while you do something else. So, that looks like maybe this is another tool for a Palpatine deck to be able to use that side. And then also at the same time, you're doing that focusing while you're also spinning another side to a damage side. So that special gets, I think, interesting when you look at it that way. And if you put it there, a lot of times those 3 indirect sides are just fine in a villain deck. So that's the first place I thought this might slot in.
Yeah, makes sense. And it adds to the examples you gave there, it adds a little bit of special chaining to the blue villain, which they haven't had a ton of access to in the past. So that definitely is an interesting thought. I like that. And I won't spoil too much, but I feel like it's a pretty safe precedent that, like you said, there's a training version of this card, and most trainings have a thing that says to play the mastery for free. So that will I at least help get that first ability off a little bit more frequently, possibly. But
Right.
yeah, playing it by itself is really tough because like Blue Hero, like it specifically suffers to trying to make a lot of money.
Yep.
So yeah, I like the idea of Palp though. This going into a Death Field or a Force Storm sounds pretty gross.
Yep, and maybe a Bane. I don't know how many more expensive things Bane can have, but he would also be one that might be able to take advantage of it, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's only a certain number of slots for expensive upgrades in those decks, right? So you got to weigh it against the other options.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Yeah. So have you had a chance to see the rest of the spoilers so far? Like the first thing that I thought in terms of things that were already spoiled is Second Sister, because she also has a special that you can chain.
Yeah, you can chain, and she can also mess with dice, so you can do some multiple dice messing things and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did see that on the Hyperloops thing, and so that's interesting. I don't know exactly how those two would pair together, but
yeah,
there's definitely fun shenanigans to be had. I know that when you can mess with multiple people's dice with like Neiman's and stuff like that,
yeah,
they can get frustrated because they're like expecting hard removal, but a lot of soft removal sometimes can be as much or more annoying to play against.
yeah, for sure. It's an interesting thought in terms of the mill implications, because soft removal is really strong in that, and the 2 discard side is relevant there too. But I don't know. That's interesting. All right, I'm curious to see where this lands. Yeah.
Yeah. I think this has got a potential here, right? Like I don't know. I had some ideas, but I don't know where it goes, and I think it's got. It's not super overcosted. I think it might be able to fit in somewhere, and then just being able to find a place that wants to use those dice sides. I think there's lots of possibilities.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. All right. Well, I mean, those are the 3 cards we were looking at today. What do you think overall?
Oh, I'm super excited. I'm glad I got these, and I've enjoyed trying to find ways to. So Sifo Diaz is probably the one I'm most excited about, just because I like those support characters and be able to cram a bunch of bodies in and get extra hit points and have time to ramp up to some plan, right? Not necessarily support plan, but some plan that's a long-term plan.
Sure.
And so I think he could possibly go in there and extra cards. I mean, I was playing back with Ayla, I was playing the plot that gave me extra card to start the game, and this is a card that lets me basically get an extra card every round. So I think there's potential there.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm excited to see what you do with it, because I have a feeling that if anyone's going to break it, it's going to be you.
I will try my best.
I look forward to it. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for doing this, man. I appreciate you coming on and just giving us your thoughts. I understand you have something coming up with the Faltering Allegiances launch. So why don't you tell the people kind of what you got planned here?
So the continuation committee is laying out a whole week of events for the launch, and so one of the things they asked me to do was to host a draft, which is kind of one of the things that I love passionately. And so on the 21st, which is a Wednesday evening, we're going to do a Faltering Allegiances draft. I don't know the details of exactly how I'm going to set it up, but basically I'm going to have some pre-constructed draft pods. I might not try and use the draft kit, but we'll see how that works after all the cards are out, because I haven't seen them all, so I don't know exactly how it's going to work. But come by. It'll be 9 o'clock Central time that we're going to do that in the Artificery Discord channel, and it should be a lot of fun.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds fun. I'm looking forward to it. And it's like you said, some of the details haven't been ironed out yet, but keep an eye on the Artificery Discord. We'll post details about it in the Renewed Hope Discord, and I'll put a link to it on the site as well if you want to follow along and sign up that way. But any of those places, and you'll be able to find and get out in there. It should be a good time. So thanks for putting that together.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it, and thanks so much to you guys and your committee for putting this all together. It seems like a wonderful week and a wonderful set.
Awesome. Appreciate it, man. Thanks again for joining, and thanks everybody else for tuning in and watching. And I'll see you guys on the 16th.
Bye.